Around 3 to 4 years ago, when I was 12, I was at my aunt's house visiting for camp. I was upstairs and saw the camera go off saying someone was at the back door. It was my older cousin, so I went downstairs to open the door. I was able to see him for a little bit before I actually got to the door. He looked so determined and focused on opening the door. He spent less than a minute at the door, then he got in his car and sped off. At first, I didn't think much of it, honestly. All I thought was, oh, he must have been in a rush if he didn't bother calling us to open the door. I was even thinking about opening the door and calling out to him before he drove off, but I was feeling lazy that day. Around 2 minutes later, the house phone started ringing, along with my personal phone and my grandma's phone. I picked it up. It was another one of my aunts telling me not to open the door and to stay away from the windows. They told me they already called the cops, but that I should call them anyways again. I was very confused and asked what happened. They explained that my aunt and cousin got in a very heated argument about the business she owned and left him $300,000 in debt. The day before that led to him hitting her. The next day, he came looking for her very upset, but couldn't find her at the office. He proceeded to drive to my aunt's house while on the phone with some family members, telling them how he was going to kill my aunt, his mother. I remember going to the kitchen and picking up a knife to keep with me just in case. I was shaking while thinking about where to hide. He ended up coming back and started walking around the house looking through the windows before he sat at the front step. I don't even know what exact time I called the police due to my panicking, but the cops did end up coming and made my cousin leave, but my grandma wanted to talk to him first. Throughout their whole talk, I still hide upstairs listening through an open window. I pray she did not mention my name in case he came back later in the night. Luckily, he never did. To this day, I'm so glad I did not open that door. I feel like I was truly protected. We normally don't lock both the screen door and actual door, but we did that day. He struggled so much with lock screen door that he broke the handle. Luckily it didn't open to the door where he knew the code. This situation still gives me so much anxiety, and I don't understand how we went back to acting like nothing happened. Never been back since, just in case he snaps again. I used to work at a restaurant and got off work around 10 p.m. During that time, I lived in an apartment complex. At that apartment, there was assigned parking. My parking spot was against the wall, so that once I was in my parking spot, I could not go forward because there would be a building in front of me. One night, when I was getting off work, there was a truck a few feet in front of my parking spot. Not a big deal since, being an apartment complex, there were always lots of vehicles around the area, but since it was night, it was worth paying attention to. As soon as I parked in my spot, however, the truck went into reverse, blocking me in my parking spot so I couldn't go forward or backwards. This felt very creepy. I was trapped. The first thing I did was check to make sure that all the doors were locked. The second thing I did was pull out my phone and get ready to phone someone in case I needed help. Running anywhere was not an option. The man in the truck came out to my car and knocked on my driver's side window and indicated that he wanted me to lower them so that we could talk. At the time, I was around 25 years old, and I didn't feel safe, so I declined to lower my window. The man decided to continue anyways. He first asked me if I lived in the apartment building. I wasn't sure what answer would be safest. I did not want to tell him I lived there, but I also wasn't sure how well a lie would go over, if he would believe me or if he would ask me why I was in the residential parking. When I decided to decline to answer, he told me that he was supposed to meet up with a friend, but that his friend wasn't answering his phone, so the man wanted to know if I could get out of my car and let him into the building. So the apartment complex I lived in had several units that were locked, and you needed either a key or the PIN code to get into the building. I don't know if the same key or PIN code would get you into all the units, or if there were different keys or different PIN codes for each unit. The way the man had asked me to get out of my car felt so wrong and creepy, so much to the point that I started panicking and just screamed. The man did not say anything and just ran back to his truck and drove away. The area that he drove to didn't technically have an entrance to the street, but you could get back on the street if you were willing to drive over the sidewalks. I felt very scared and stayed in my car for about 15 minutes until I felt reasonably certain that the man was not coming back, and then I left my car and went into the building. This happened around 6 to 7 years ago, and I've always wondered if he was innocent and overreacted, or if he was planning to hurt me, or the friend not answering their phone. This happened some years ago when I was 20, I think. I was going on a road trip of a sort with a really good friend of mine and his family. Our destination was a concert in a country next to ours, but we would be stopping at night to sleep in the camper we drove in. We hadn't crossed the border yet when we got to our first campsite for the night. Now it seemed like a pretty family-friendly and safe place, so none of us had our guards up or anything. That night at about 11 p.m. or so, while my friend and his family was getting ready for bed, I went outside to get some fresh air. Our camper was almost completely next to the beach, so I went down to the shore to dip my feet and get some much needed quiet time to myself. On the way there though, I passed by a beach shack, a detail that will be important later. As I stood there letting the waves lap over my feet, I noticed the silhouette of a man further down the beach, but it was a public space for campers, so I didn't think much of it. After being absorbed by splashing in the water with my feet and enjoying the moonlight, I decided to make my way back. Of course, it was very dark given the late hour, but I don't scare easily. Now, as a woman in the modern world, I usually do stay on my guard after dark, but that thought never really occurred to me since I felt like I was in a safe environment so close to the campsite. Anyways, as I was walking back, I noticed that the silhouette of the man further down the beach was gone. But even more worrying was the fact that I was nearing the beach shack, and I saw that someone seemed to be trying to hide from my view behind it. Immediately, I was on alert and called a friend I knew was awake. I gave the shack a wild berth while talking loudly to my friend about how she was coming to meet me. After not too long, I safely got back to the campsite and hopped into bed. I didn't tell my friend or his family because even though I was scared, there could have been many non-threatening answers to what I saw. I put it out of my mind and the rest of the trip went off without a hitch. About a year or so later, I was talking to my friend about the trip. I suddenly realized the creepy experience. As I told him, he slowly got pale though, and told me something his brother had told him and his family over breakfast some months after the trip. The same night after I had gotten back and gone to bed, his brother had gotten up late at night to get some water, but when he passed the window right by his bed, he saw a man standing right there outside looking in the window. As soon as he was seen, the man left, but it definitely creeped out the brother a lot. But just like me, he seemed to put it out of his mind. Now if both of our stories didn't seem far-fetched that the man was hiding by the beach shack had followed me back, I'm really scared to think about what would happen if I was alone.